The Midnight Staircase. Helen loved Kipsley. She loved the way the neoclassical buildings leaned into each other, their balconies heavy with ivy and drying laundry. She loved the smell of fresh coulouri and the scent of oranges from the street vendors on Fociono's Negri. She loved the old men arguing over backgammon at the Periptero, the way the stray cats lounged on sun-warmed stone steps, the children's laughter rising from Pedian Tuarios, where the city forgot itself and let the trees breathe. But there was one thing Helen did not love. Her little brother, Yanni. Yanni was a walking disaster. He could turn a 5-minute walk into an odyssey of chaos, chasing stray cats, getting lost in crowds, nearly tumbling into the street while trying to catch pigeons. If she let go of his hand for 1 second, he'd vanish, and she'd have to hunt him down like a missing sock. And tonight, she was supposed to be watching him. "Yanni, stop running," she snapped as he darted ahead on Califrona Street. "If you disappear, I'm not looking for you." "You always look for me," he called back, grinning. Helen groaned. Why was he like this? At the park, it took 10 minutes for him to lose a shoe in the bushes. Another 5 for him to find the most dangerous-looking tree and climb it. By the time she finally got him home, she was exhausted. "Yanni, you are so annoying," she burst out. "I wish you'd just go away for once." The words came out sharper than she intended. Yanni's grin faded. He lowered his gaze, his small hands fidgeting. Helen folded her arms. He deserved it. If he didn't want to be yelled at, maybe he shouldn't act like such a little gremlin. That night, Yanni disappeared. The vanishing. Helen woke up before the city. Kipsley was never truly silent, not even at night. There was always the low murmur of late-night tavernas, the hum of mopeds winding through narrow streets, the occasional bark of a stray dog. But tonight, the silence felt hollow. A chill slipped through the open window, raising goosebumps on her arms. The air smelled different, like smoke and cold marble. Then, she heard it. A whisper. It wasn't a voice, not really. More like the rustling of pages in an ancient book, the sigh of wind through forgotten places. Something moved in the hallway. Helen's heart slammed against her ribs. She pushed back the covers and crept toward Yanni's room. His door was open. And inside, there was a staircase. The Midnight Staircase. Helen froze. The room wasn't his room anymore. The bed, the posters, the clutter of toys, all gone. In their place stood a staircase. It spiraled downward into nothingness, its steps made of shadow, not quite solid, not quite air. The walls pulsed, as if the very space around it was alive. And Yanni was walking down. Helen's breath hitched. "Yanni." He didn't stop. She lunged forward, grabbing his wrist. And fell. The Realm of Nyx. Helen hit the ground hard, her breath knocked from her lungs. Above her stretched a sky that was wrong. Deep, endless violet, flecked with stars that flickered like dying embers. The air felt thick, humming with something ancient and unseen. A massive marble gate loomed ahead, its surface carved with symbols that pulsed like heartbeat rhythms. Beyond it lay a city of floating buildings, streets woven from silver light, rivers that curled through the air like ribbons. And standing just beyond the gate was Yanni. Helen ran forward, but the shadows moved. A figure emerged. She was taller than any human. Her skin was a deep shade of night, her robes woven from the fabric of midnight itself. Her hair spilled in waves of starlit black, and her eyes were constellations, burning with cold fire. Helen knew who she was. Nyx. The goddess of night. A force older than the Olympians. Nyx's voice was not loud, but it carried weight. "You called him here." Helen's throat went dry. What?" "You wished him away." Nyx tilted her head. And the night listened. Helen felt her stomach drop. No. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. She stepped forward. "Please. Give him back." Nyx watched her, unreadable. "And if I do? Will you cast him aside again the next time he annoys you?" Helen couldn't breathe. She didn't mean it. She never meant it. Nyx lifted a hand. "Then prove it." The trial. Helen fell. Through memories. She saw herself at the kitchen table, snapping, Stop touching my stuff. She saw Yanni knocking on her door. She ignored him. She saw him holding out his favorite toy, offering it to her with a smile. She turned away. Helen clenched her fists. I didn't mean it, she whispered. The memories shattered. She was back before Nyx. The goddess studied her for a long moment. Then, she lifted her hand. Yanni stirred. His eyes fluttered open. Helen. She ran to him, wrapping her arms around him. I'm here. I'm here. Nyx watched. Go now. And remember this night. The shadows rose. And Helen found herself back in their apartment. Holding Yanni. The staircase was gone. The morning after. Yanni stretched and yawned. I had the weirdest dream, he mumbled. There was a lady with stars in her eyes. Helen's breath caught. You remember? He frowned. I think so. But it's fading. She hesitated. Then, she reached out and ruffled his messy hair. Hey, Yanni. Yeah. She smiled. Wanna play? His face lit up. Really? Helen nodded. Really? From the corner of the room, the shadows flickered, just for a moment, like a watchful gaze, before melting into the morning light. Nyx was gone. But Helen would never forget.